here's a good place to start. Okay. Comrade Social Distancing, thanks for gifting a sub to Silver. So, I mean, we got into this subject a little bit. I'm transitioning into serious mode
good
now.
old Rob to talk you through all this.
Messi95, thank you for the Prime sub. Thank you, Messi95. I'm transitioning into serious mode now. Okay, we've had fun. We chit-chatted. We talked about my chart. I played my new 80s coming-of-age synth-pop track that I've been working on. Now it's time to get serious, okay? So everyone put on your serious face here, because this is serious shit. But this is a good place to start, I think, because we talked a little bit about the kind of ongoing censorship campaign right now that's going on, where not only Russian state media is all being banned across the board, but there's kind of this effort right now to... The music is still playing. That's not true, is it? Fuck. Sorry. Kind of undermines what I was saying about being serious. Sorry about that. It was very low. But there's the ongoing effort right now to not only ban like state media, like Russian state media is being banned across the board, but pretty much any viewpoint that runs counter to the Western viewpoint on this conflict, or the Western narrative in general about what has been going on. There's this campaign to completely censor any of that. And it also coincides with the campaign to censor anything that promotes violence in any way. Remember? We can say what we want. You know, we have freedom of speech. We have an open exchange of ideas. We have a marketplace of ideas. You can't promote violence, though. You cannot promote violence. We've seen like the Trap House subreddit getting banned for like for people saying like, I think, and I'm not saying this, but like just an example of a viewpoint that will get you banned is to say like, I think landlords should be shot or something like that. If enough people say that, the whole subreddits of hundreds of thousands of people have been banned. You can't ever promote this violent viewpoint. Except against Russians, of course, that's being normalized. Like that's okay. They've made some exceptions over on Facebook. If you want to, talk about why it's okay to hurt Russians and it's okay to want to kill Russians, that's all right. That's okay right now. Okay, because they're bad, so that makes it okay. But here's one thing that has not been banned. Here's one thing that has not been banned: the Volunteers for Ukraine subreddit, which is a subreddit in which Redditors are organizing, and there's actually people. This has been encouraged. Okay, it's not just on Reddit. This has been encouraged in our media and in social media, and including on Reddit, where it's like, if you care about Ukraine and you want to go take the fight to the evil, dastardly Russians, go sign up. You can volunteer, and you can join the Ukrainian military to go fight in this war. And people are doing this. There's people coming from all over the world, including Canada, where there's a large Ukrainian diaspora, are volunteering to go and fight in this conflict. And this is both people with zero training whatsoever. This is like actual mercenaries and actual people that have experience fighting in different conflicts. It's a lot like Call of Duty. I think, as we'll find out as we explore this issue, is that it seems like a lot of the people that are indeed doing this, that are volunteering to fight in the Ukrainian military, are quickly finding out that it is in fact not a video game. It is not a movie. This is real life. Don't join the Ukrainian military. You can actually die. Like, this is the kind of issue that I think is a problem here. is that people think this is some game or that they're the hero in some movie. And, they're going to go fight for the good guys. They're going to join the good guys and fight against the evil, dastardly bad guys. And they're going to help the oppressed country that's being bullied and invaded by the evil, powerful country. And they're going to join the plucky underdogs. And they're going to be the hero. Because of course they're the protagonist. They're the protagonist of reality. So they're going to join the plucky underdogs. And they're going to go and they're going to be the hero in this story. And they're going to liberate this country from this invasion. This shit is not a game. This is not a video game. It's not an action movie. This is real life. You will die if you take this shit seriously. And I know we're going to look at some of the posts that have come out about this, especially over the last couple of days. As lo and behold, this foreign legion is getting bombed to shit. And I understand that there's this tendency, you can kind of morbidly laugh. I understand the tendency to kind of morbidly laugh at these Redditors that are going to volunteer for this fucking military conflict and just immediately getting blown up. But it's honestly, I think, very sad. I think it's very sad what's happening. There's this full propaganda machine in full effect right now. There's this full propaganda, this propaganda machine is in full effect right now. It's being openly propagated by our mainstream media. It's being openly promoted by social media. And people are falling for this, and they're literally dying. Kids that are going from FPS to this are not going to have a good time. And so here's some of the shit that's on this subreddit. And again, so here's the missile strikes on this foreign legion. We can take a look at that. I'm careful. We got to be careful if their training facility was bombed today. I'm going to be careful what we look at because I don't want to look at any clips of violence or anything like that. And of course, there's people on this subreddit that are volunteering for other things, that are trying to help refugees and do positive things and do what they can at the border to help whoever. That's all well and good. But I want to focus on the people that are actually joining up this military conflict. And here's one of the top posts on this subreddit. 2 veterans of uniformed services of the free world join Ukrainian Foreign Legion today to help stop Russia's military invasion of Ukraine. So again, if we care about the idea of censoring calls for violence, I think it's genuinely very fucked up that on this subreddit, which is been hit huge growth. It's 50,000 members right now, just over the last couple of weeks. And this video is on this subreddit, this propaganda video, which is again encouraging people to join this conflict. And I think promoting a very not accurate idea of what this is going to look like. Okay. So let's look at this video. This is one of the top videos on this subreddit.
This is an open call to all the heroes of the free world. On the 24th of February, Vladimir Putin started the war in Ukraine. He planned a blitzkrieg, but got the blitzfuck instead, when his numerous bastards called the Russian army met the Ukrainians armed with stingers, javelins, bayraktars, and an uncompromising willingness to protect their liberty. Soldiers and heroes of the world, join the fight for liberty, for the human rights, for the free world. Join the Foreign Legion of Ukraine.
Okay. And again, it's talking about the conflict starting on the 24th of February, not exactly accurate. But just, again, it's giving this idea, number one, this idea that Russia is somehow losing, to the plucky underdogs. White people have finally understood jihad, that's right. They still think that there's this idea that they're going to join the good guys, right? It's the good guys in this conflict. You have the evil guys on one side, and we're going to join the good guys. Yes, we're outnumbered. Yes, we're outmanned. Yes, we're outgunned. But we've got the force of good on our side, and that's going to protect us. And again, this is not a fucking movie. This is not a game. This is real life. It's genuinely insane how Reddit is able to outdo itself. And again, I wonder, it's amazing to me that this is okay. It's okay to have this on Reddit. It's okay to have this whole subreddit out there basically encouraging people to join this conflict, to basically sign up to be, and I'm sorry to say this, cannon fodder. That's what this is. That's what these foreign volunteers are in this case. They're literally just getting signed up to be thrown in front of fucking Russian tanks. And this is okay to have on Reddit. But of course, anything like, the whole Russia subreddit, anyone that's like remotely expressing the other idea or expressing the pro-Russian viewpoint, which is not a viewpoint that I agree with, still, I think a legitimate viewpoint to have, regardless of whether or not you agree with it. That's all totally not okay. That's all being censored. All state media being censored. Every other viewpoint behind this like official state-sanctioned Western narrative censored. But this on Reddit is totally okay for the people to join this conflict. Once Ukraine isn't winning the war. I mean, this is the thing, Silver. This is there's been a relentless propaganda campaign, and Reddit has swallowed every drop of it. That like they're winning this, and that they have a chance to repel this invasion if they want it enough. If they want it enough, they can win. They can repel the evil Russian hordes. This is like a propaganda campaign that's been fucking relentless over the last couple of weeks. And people believe it. They log on to Twitter and Facebook and they see, the whole Russian, 6,000 Russian planes have been down. 500 Russian tanks have been destroyed. We've got the javelins. We've got they lost the war 2 weeks ago. It's just basically a formality. They've been logging on and just absorbing all of this stuff for a couple weeks now. And they get this idea that they can go and be heroes. They can join for the free. Like, what is this shit? Like, what is this? What does it say again?
It's for the free world.
For the free world.
Join the Foreign Legion of Ukraine.
They can be the defenders of freedom and liberty. And people are believing this. And people are actually signing up to go and fight in this conflict. Yeah, the Ghost of Kiev. There's all these stories that have been floating around, which have been openly promoted by like people who generally are people that like identify themselves as being like misinformation experts and stuff. And all these misinformation experts are saying like, actually, no, this misinformation is good when you like the people that are doing it. Just like violence is good when you don't like the people that are having violence committed against them. Imagine joining a war for the upvotes. Yeah, or for the clout. And people are really doing this. Better than working at a capitalist job. I'm not so sure that it is. I'm not so sure that it is at all, actually. Just getting instantly vaporized in some country that you have nothing to do with. Actually, I think it's better to work at some shitty capitalist job than that, personally. That's just me, though. I'm built different. I actually don't think it's a good idea to go and join this conflict and get instantly fucking demolished. Ultra boot take. What does that even mean? I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. Would definitely rather have my surplus value stolen than have my surplus life stolen. Yeah, I'm going to keep my job in sales instead of going and getting myself killed in Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, that's generally how I would feel about it too. Read what the volunteers are saying about how slowly or quickly they've been picked off, how under-equipped they are, how they're not even being trained, they're just given an old gun and sent to the front. I guess early grave is better than a capitalist job. Well, IDK dude, why? Please, by all means. I mean, I would advise against joining the Ukrainian military, as the title says. I would advise against it personally. If you really feel that passionately about it, I guess like go for it. And you can become, if you want to become a foreign correspondent for TRRS, and you can go and let us know how that works out for you. Don't let us stop you. I mean, I'm trying to give you good advice, what I think is good advice here. I would advise you not to do this personally, and I would advise no one else to take this opportunity. If you really feel that passionately about it, though, I guess go for it, and you can let us know how it works out. Personally, I'm against that, though. Personally, I'm not going to be doing that. And I would advise others to not do it as well. Okay, now I don't know if you're... Now I just think you're trolling. IDK, dude, why? We do a little... We get a little trolling sometimes. It's okay. Let me find the tweet that I was referring to, though. Of course, I saved every tweet but the one that I need right now. So this was the Foreign Legion barracks, which was bombed today. I don't think there's any real violence in this. It's just an image of this bombing that took place. And I'd actually like to, because I saw this was posted here, I would like to read some of the comments here. Foreign Legion missile strikes. This is where the Foreign Legion, this was happening with the Foreign Legion this morning. I've been trying not to show too much like footage of the actual war because it's very tricky with the TOS and stuff. It's also very tricky to know what's true and what's not, so I've been trying to avoid that and just talking more about the context. This, I think, is pretty safe. It's just like some missile strikes at a distance. Let's look at some of the comments of this. Glad you're out of there. So many people seem to have dived in without knowing what they're in for. This guy says, I admit I was a little naive myself, even having seen some combat previously. I did not expect to be attacked by jets while sleeping in a barracks room on a training base 10 miles from Poland. So, I mean, that speaks to, I think, how these expectations have been different from people that even have been involved in conflicts before. Because even guys that have been in Afghanistan and Iraq and these places are like, what is this? Like, we're just getting bombed from the sky? We can't just like call in a drone strike on some village where there's five guys shooting at us with Soviet era rifles or older, and we can't just call in a drone strike to vaporize the whole village? We're in fact the ones being vaporized, and it's like, yeah, this isn't actually like you're signing up to be in this conflict against an actual like army that has this like that has an air force that has air superiority. This is not Afghanistan. This is not Iraq. This is not one of these cases where you've got the huge, like the massive multi-billion-dollar military arsenal at your disposal against people, you know, in tracksuits with like whatever with IEDs and like whatever they can cobble together. You know, this is, again, it's not a game. And so another thing, so number one, I didn't expect to be attacked by jets, and like while sleeping in a barracks room in a training base 10 miles from Poland. And again, I'm sorry, but you've now volunteered to join this conflict, to be an armed fighter in this conflict, and like, I don't know what people expect to happen. I do not know what people expect to happen. Genuinely, they're like, "What? You're attacking us in our barracks?" And it's like, yeah, you're just signed up to be in a war. Like, again, I don't want to laugh at this. I genuinely find it disturbing that people have been pulled in. The propaganda over the last couple of weeks has been so strong that you have foreign volunteers volunteering to join this conflict without seeming to understand like what the fuck they're getting into. And again, being deliberately misled about their chances of like succeeding in this military conflict. Spawn camping is cheating. It's not a game. I'm so close to Poland. Like I'm sorry. I genuinely, I don't mean to make light of this. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. People are dying. It's fucked up. But I'm genuinely kind of perplexed about what people are expecting here. People are volunteering to be part of this, and I don't know what they're expecting. Yeah, and they're doxing the base that they're in again after they got bombed. They're just giving away all these positions. Yeah. Seen a post from an infantryman a while back saying it's hell on earth. It's definitely a different theater out there than what we experienced. Yeah, man, I had been mortared before and thought that was pretty gnarly because it's out of your control, you know, but being absolutely defenseless and in the open with 3 aircraft just shitting all over you with such heavy ordnance was a whole new level of helplessness. Yeah, I would say so. I would say it is. And there's actually some people in this comment thread that are pointing this shit out. Funny TV man told me Russia was losing. Like, I do hope that some people are starting to get the actual idea of what is going to happen to them if they decide to go and participate in this. Truly hate Zelensky and all these fucks prolonging this brutality and spending Ukrainian lives to bleed Russia on behalf of NATO. I think, and this is something that I think I've seen a number of people. This is like boomer COVID suicide, just an excuse to go out in a way that's more on your own terms. Okay, so I see IDK dude, why? I thought you were actually one of these people for a while. Okay, you were being a little facetious. Okay, we respect it. And bigger wig, like to your comment about Zelensky, one thing that I've seen people talking about, which is something that I kind of agree with, is that judging from his statements, both like as this kicked off and in the weeks previously, it seems like Zelensky really did believe that NATO was going to come back him up. Do you think I'm wrong about this? It seems like Zelensky really thought that once this starts, NATO is going to have my back, and is now like, what the fuck? What the fuck's going on? I wonder where he got that idea. Yeah, it's like, it's just sick. Everything about this is so sick. You have people, certainly people in the West, advisors, military advisors and CIA guys and NATO people being like, oh yeah. We got this. Don't worry. We're going to back you up. And have been encouraging this escalation for the last 10 years. I mean, even when Zelensky himself was elected, he was elected as like the peace candidate. He wanted to de-escalate. He wanted to de-escalate the conflict, which is probably why he was very popular in that election. Even people in, I think, East Ukraine voted for Zelensky quite a lot because they viewed him as being like the peace. He said, I'm going to be the one that's going to de-escalate. And he gets elected. And of course, that's just not an option. De-escalation is just not an option. You've got NATO whispering in one ear saying like, no, we got to keep escalating this, keep escalating. And then you've got Azov battalion in the other ear being like, no de-escalation, no deal. No deal. So it escalates and gets to this. Then finally there's this like dramatic, violent escalation on Russia's side. And it really does seem like he's kind of left holding the bag, being like, I thought I was going to have backup here, and he's got nothing. And again, you have ordinary Ukrainians and these poor saps volunteering for this conflict that are the first people that are being harmed now in this process. I noticed today one of the debate bros and his fans are all in on the propaganda that is close to losing, and if they straight up believe Ukrainian estimates on Russian losses, it would make sense. Yeah, well, there's a lot of our debate bro friends that have been, again, just guzzling from the propaganda hose. All the shit about the ghost of Kiev and Snake Island and all this stuff, and then the brave Ukrainian military soldiers on Snake Island said, "Go fuck yourself." I've never heard of anything so brave, and then they were instantly annihilated. And just repeating this stuff completely uncritically. Everything that they hear is completely uncritically repeating it. This guy says, "Bro, if you can't handle this, then go to Poland. It's your choice at the end. I know you're there to fight, but if you have second thoughts, just go and be safe." He says, "I am in Poland with many other volunteers. I'm man enough to walk away from a situation when my gut tells me so. A lot of us are going to likely assist refugees at the border because most of us really did come here to help." This is just psycho shit. The general consensus was that they wouldn't drop bombs so close to Poland. And honestly, credit to people in Reddit that are like going into this thread and being like, what the fuck did you expect to happen? I'm curious as to why you thought you wouldn't be bombed. The general consensus that they wouldn't drop bombs so close to Poland, I guess we underestimated Putin's aggressiveness and willingness to poke the bear. Also, who really expects a jet to attack them? Crying smiley face emoji. That's part of being naive, of course. I knew it was a possibility. I was just really fucking hoping it wouldn't happen to me. Jesus Christ. They thought they had the UAV perk. Yeah, the Ghost of Kiev is cool and all, but have you seen the heroic Kharkiv Kid Finder? It's amazing that they did. There was like an official fact check on that. There was an official fact check on that. Yeah, I saw Michael Tracy's in there taking pictures of military vehicles in Poland. The Kharkiv Kid Finder, Jesus Christ. So here's from the video that we watched of the bombed barracks. Here is the person that posted that. It says, "Dude, I deleted all my posts because I didn't go to Ukraine for the clout." You kind of did, sir. I'm sorry to say. "I asked the right questions, deleted my posts, actually bought a plane ticket and brought my ass over. I said in another comment that yes, it was 35 Ukrainians killed because their barracks got directly hit. The 180 bullshit is real Russian propaganda. If you think I'm a Russian agent, you're just in denial that the situation is absolutely fucked. Go ahead and join the Legion by all means. Just be very aware of how bad Kiev is going to get, and be aware that Russians have warplanes and that you will have next to nothing. Be very acceptant of the possibility of death. Those of us who left, including SF operators from multiple countries, are simply risk mitigating. No one wants to die in an unfair fight, and after getting absolutely fucking pummeled by massive cruise missiles today, yeah, I kind of want people to think twice before turning their life upside down to go and volunteer." This is their description of the attack from the barracks. Yes, I was here today and blown off the top bunk of my bunk bed in my barracks by the first missile. I made a long post about it, but my posts don't show on this thread for some reason. This is where all the Foreign Legion troops are. The 35 killed were all Ukrainian, mostly due to a direct hit on their barracks next to mine. The base is destroyed, the weapons depot destroyed, possibly the end of the Legion. About 60 people with their heads on straight, including myself, left after the attack. They're sending untrained guys to the front with little ammo and shit AKs, and they're getting killed. The guys who stayed got bombed again in the afternoon, and casualties aren't clear. If you still want to join them, I'm not sure what the process will be, since literally all the infrastructure supporting the training assignments of volunteers is all destroyed. The guys who are there now will all be going to Kiev, and many will die. The Legion is totally outgunned and has a few crazy Ukrainian leaders. After the attack, one officer wanted to march everyone to Kiev and fight. Absolute insanity. Stay home. Said, I realized that when I was laying on the ground this morning praying to a God I don't believe in, that the next one didn't have my name on it. You quickly realize the preciousness and desire of life compared to the meaningless of being hit by a fucking Russian missile. And he says, that's another big part, man. Like, a lot of dudes there have experience and really wanted to shape the battlefield and impact their advance, but ultimately they're manning frontline positions that are going to get hammered with artillery and airstrikes, buried under rubble, and your family never gets your body. That's when a lot of guys say, yeah, this isn't our fight. Not like this. Well, that's the thing, Amazing Bird Show. Usually when you're part of NATO or the rules-based international order, you have air superiority. That's what I mean. A lot of these guys, even guys that have experience in Afghanistan or Iraq, they're signing up because they think it's going to be like that. And it's like, no, it's not. Again, it's not like that. You don't just you get a couple guys taking pot shots at you and you call in a drone strike to destroy an entire village. It's not going to be like that at all. Like, this is an army that has an air force. Shape the battlefield. Like, come on. I was going to be a glorious general leading from the back, not this frontline bullshit. Exactly. And this is what I'm trying to articulate to people. You know, this shit is not a game. This is not a movie. You're not the protagonist of reality. You can die if you go and join this conflict because you've swallowed all this propaganda about protecting the innocent, beautiful, democratic country that's being attacked by the evil army, the evil, powerful army. And you're going to join the good guys and you're going to be a freedom fighter that liberates the country. Like, you can die. Did you see the video of the French foreign fighter running from the bombed base? Just hope none of this is TOS.
Voilà, la base vient d'être bombardée, on s'en va. J'ai des copains qui sont morts, donc on se recule, on se barre.
Oh shit, sorry, wrong window. And like the point,
voilà, la base.
The main thing that I'm trying to articulate here too is like we looked at that propaganda video that's publicly on the Volunteers for Ukraine subreddit with the patriotic music and saying like, oh, Putin's army is losing. We've got the javelins and we've got all the support and we've got the truth and goodness and justice on our side and stuff. Join the Ukrainian volunteers. Join the Foreign Legion. This is openly promoted on Reddit, and again, this viewpoint that victory is some kind of possibility in this case has been propagated widely in our media and on social media, and like that's the fantasy version that's being like sold to people right now, and this is like what the actual reality looks like of that.
Voilà, la base vient d'être bombardée, on s'en va. J'ai des copains qui sont morts, donc on se recule, on se barre.
And again, I don't even want to laugh at this shit. This is sad. This is sad. People are dying.
La base a été détruite. Faut que je reprenne 2 minutes là. Voilà. La base a été détruite. Et il y a eu un bombardement là-bas aussi. À l'instant. Voilà. Les gens qui disent que c'est pas vrai.
He was just saying the base was bombarded. Like, again, this shit is not a game. He's saying he knows people who are dead. Yeah, I wasn't listening too closely because I'm not wearing my headphones. More and more crazy stories getting out about wiped out Foreign Legion fighters. It's interesting to note that this last week there was indeed a huge targeted missile attack. Like, this is so fucked. Like, this is heartbreaking. And again, I just feel this, I feel a sense of anger right now about this, that this has been promoted so openly. It's been like totally promoted by everyone, this idea, this viewpoint, to go and join this conflict as part of our whole, the Western sort of narrative that's been forming about like, oh yeah, we need to escalate. That's how you protect Ukraine. That's how you protect Ukraine. We don't negotiate. We don't encourage diplomacy. We don't try and de-escalate anything. We save Ukraine. We save you, and we save Ukrainians. We promote human rights and we promote freedom by sending them arms and weapons and by just joining this army. Go and join the army. Go and join the Ukrainian military. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Admiral Prax, all this bluster about Ukraine is kicking Russia's ass. This has been openly promoted in our media and on social media. And people believe this. That's what I mean. When they look at that clip on the Volunteers for Ukraine subreddit, they believe this. Oh, we're actually winning. We have a chance to win this thing. We're going to join. We're the plucky underdogs, like in a movie. But we're going to win this thing. We're going to do the right thing because we have the truth and justice on our side and all this stuff. I know a guy that went to Ukraine to join the Legion. I found out that he died 3 days ago east of Zhytomyr. He was in the Foreign Legion. Initially, he went to that facility in Lviv that was hit today with missiles. He was keeping in regular contact with his parents, etc. They sent a Legion brigade to Zhytomyr and put them east of the center. They were ambushed by an armored group and were annihilated. I only found out he died because another Canadian in the brigade contacted his family to inform them he had died. The Ukrainian military weren't interested in contacting volunteers next of kin. You were your own responsibility. Annihilated, the brigade guy's word. He reckons about 80 to 90% of their brigade was killed by cannon fire and higher powered machine guns. It would have been an absolute mess. If you're over there, just get the fuck out. It's a lost cause and those Ukrainian forces are suicidal. Apparently the guy snuck back into Poland and is catching a bus with dozens of other volunteers that are scooting. And just a disclaimer as well, folks. Just a disclaimer here. We have no way of verifying that this is true, okay? We have no way of verifying that these posts are true. But I still think that it's important. We see the missile strike on the Foreign Legion training barracks. That is confirmed. And I still think it's very useful to contrast these kinds of stories, even if there's a chance that they're not true, and maybe they're not, okay? Maybe they're not. I don't want to disseminate propaganda myself here. Maybe this isn't true. I still think it's worthwhile to contrast this relentless push to encourage people to join this conflict under the pretense that not only are they the good guys in this conflict between good and evil, and they're the plucky underdogs, that they have a chance of like winning and succeeding in this at repelling this invasion. This has been completely propagated. This has been widespread, this idea, across our media and across social media. And even if this specific story is not true, people are still being killed. Like, people are dying. People that are part of this barracks that was bombed today are dying as a result of this. And for what? For what? Motherfuckers will fly to Ukraine before they serve a bowl of soup down the street. Yeah. I mean, again, I've talked many times about how I'm against this invasion. We have a lot of problems in our own society right now. To say nothing of all the countries that our own countries invade. Like, you have people that are there have this cognitive dissonance of people that are like, they went and fought in Afghanistan and literally helped invade another sovereign country under completely false pretense, under completely false humanitarian notions, like the invasion of Afghanistan. So they participate in one invasion, and then they morally condemn this invasion that's happening now, and they join to fight the country that's being invaded. I see a lot of copium from people saying Russia's going to fall any day now. So sad how delusional people are. You can't fight your way out of this one. Let's get some real peace talks instead of going to millions of deadly aid. And like I've said a couple times, tampon taste tester. Like I've said a couple times, if you care about protecting Ukraine, and if you care about the fact that people are dying right now, that's what you should be encouraging. You should be trying to encourage, as soon as possible, a peaceful diplomatic solution that ends this invasion, and not, as is the only idea that's been propagated in our Western press, and not, let's continue to escalate. Let's literally join the fucking Ukrainian military to repel this invasion and just volunteer as cannon fodder. This guy again says, from this thread on Reddit that we were looking at, any idea what percentage of Foreign Legion is left now because of this incident? Currently, maybe 10 to 15%. I imagine more might depart today, especially since they're cutting training to send guys to the front. A bunch of guys I left with were like, yeah, I've literally never held a gun, so I'm not going to go to the front if they're not going to take the time to train me. A very tough decision for them to make, but you've got to choose your battles. And they say finally, thanks, man. The cannon fodder term is what was coming out of a lot of volunteers' mouths. That's why I mentioned it. There is a real shift in people's expectations of being utilized as a unit with operational capabilities versus the reality of basically being bodies in front of the advancing Russians. I love hearing your coverage, Rob. I should get a real username instead of my troll one. Sorry if it bothers you. It just makes it maybe less. I'm trying to do serious journalism. Tampon taste tester. And sometimes it's a little distracting, but I don't want to tell you how to live your life. Okay? That's part of the magic of Twitch. I think the Ukrainians' game plan is to drown Russian with the blood of Ukrainian citizens. Well, not even that. Not even that can you end up. That's the Western NATO game plan. Like what Karl Zha was saying the other day when we talked to Karl Zha. They want to fight Russia down to the very last Ukrainian. Right? That's their plan. It's concerning how many people don't understand the horrors of war. Not only these volunteers, but also Westerners calling for a no-fly zone and the deranged people on Twitter believing a nuclear war is preferable to giving Putin any concessions. I mean, this is I think an inevitable result of this Western culture, primarily American, but this is like all over Western culture, considering how American pop culture dominates, all of Western culture. It's all American, right? This kind of like Marvel style, the way that for decades now we've fetishized war. And we've fetishized violence. And we've all been brought up on the Rambo movies with the brave Mujahideen fighters and stuff. All we were talking about it before, 24. Our whole culture is founded on this kind of fetishization of violence. And it has really warped people's brains. It's warped people's perceptions. It's a very like postmodern kind of like Baudrillard simulacra and simulacrum understanding of what war is, right? When you think about what a war is like, you don't think about the actual horror of it. And you don't think about body parts being blown apart and fucking people's intestines pouring out and women and children being blown up and like the real horror of it. We don't think about that, right? We think about action movies. We think about the sanitized Hollywood version of it. And we don't understand like what the reality, like our whole culture just fetishizes this and is built on this idea. People in the West have forgotten what war between equally equipped militaries are like, and it shows. And yeah, there hasn't been a conflict like this. That's what the American military has been doing. It's been picking on fucking villagers and farmers now since the 50s. And not fighting in a conflict where there's like an actual side with an air force and there's actually like that kind of a serious threat. They're used to fighting, these villagers and like rice farmers in Korea and Vietnam, or fucking, people in Afghanistan or Iraq, people that are just kind of like cobbling together explosive devices with whatever they have, and these insurgencies that are hopelessly outmanned and outgunned. Give me death, or give me liberty, or give me death, as long as it's someone else's and not mine. That seems to be the way that like our people in the media are framing this, who have been just enthusiastically promoting this stuff. This is just an insanely sad fucking situation. Young Russian soldiers pushed by some old general fucks into a badly organized mess, and the wide-eyed, naive Western people used to satisfy the Ukrainian elites, preaching, fighting until the last man remains, terrible vibes all around, nothing to celebrate. No. I agree, Starlight. And that's why I think there's people that are getting sucked into the other. I think if you're someone that's getting sucked into like either side of this, where you think that there's one good moral side and there's one evil side, whether you view the NATO and the CIA and the West and Ukraine as being the evil side, or you view the dastardly evil Russians as being that. I mean, I think if you're getting pulled into either one of those camps, you're kind of like losing it a little bit. You're losing the plot a little bit. And that's coming from someone, as you know, if you've been watching this channel, I've spent lots of time talking about the context and talking about the very real security concerns that Russia has and the very real causes of this conflict, NATO expansion and the collapse of the Soviet Union, and Donbass and the Azov Battalion and all these things. You can keep in mind that you can keep all that context in mind and still not allow yourself to be pulled into this idea that there's one side of this conflict that's the moral, just side. If you're picking sides, I would invite you not to do that. Yeah, I agree with that. If these Ukrainians weren't burning socialist books, maybe they could learn how to win a war witut air and ground superiority. Well, that's what I mean. It's like you've seen, like, there's people in Vietnam have accomplished this, right? People in Afghanistan have fought a 20-year war against this while being hopelessly outmanned and outgunned. But it didn't come cheap, these victories. The victory against U.S. imperialism in Vietnam did not come cheap, right? Millions and millions of people died. This is a protracted, multi-year-long, brutal insurgency. So, yeah, it is possible. It absolutely is possible to win against this an insurgency, against this like vastly superior enemy military invasion force. But that's not something that happens overnight, right? This is a sometimes decades-long process. In which millions and millions of people inevitably die. Well, that's the thing I like Lenin about Zelensky being utterly unwilling to negotiate. I think my view of this, my understanding of it, is that Zelensky is kind of a Western puppet. I know he's, like I was mentioning before, he's someone that got elected under the idea of de-escalating this conflict. But you have NATO whispering in one ear, and you have Azov Battalion whispering in the other ear, saying like, no, that's not a possibility. That's what I mean. It's not even, I don't think it's up to him. It's up to the US, NATO, and it's, people in the West, and they're saying like, no deal, Russia. Like when we saw those posts like from the Kiev Independent, which is not like a Western source, it's like a Ukrainian source saying like Russia wants to negotiate, here's the terms that they're putting out there. And you have all these like Americans in the comments being like, no deal, Putin. No deal, sir. Can you hang on 1 second, folks? Momo's stuck in the basement. She's trying to get out. I'll be right back, all right? Okay. So what else do I got a couple of more posts here we can take a look at. There's this one from an American volunteer on the front lines of Kiev. This is from Nolan Peterson, war reporter based in Ukraine since 2014. From an American volunteer on the front lines outside of Kiev. Sitting close to the front line, the last safe mode of transportation leaves for greener pastures. A core group of about 30 foreign fighters remains out of around 200 people who were here just a few minutes ago. The base we came from was struck by rockets in the early morning hours. People we lived with for a couple days are confirmed dead. It's only a matter of time before our location is targeted. We're about to be cut off by a Russian tank column any day now. Food, water, and ammunition dwindle slowly. The mood is somber. People are sending their last messages to friends and family. This is so fucking grim. Where is NATO? Where is the supposed good of Western civilization? And he says, an important note, this American is a special ops veteran who completed combat deployments to Afghanistan. He came to Ukraine before Russia's full-scale war on February 24th. He's an experienced, well-trained soldier who gave up his lucrative career in the U.S. in order to help Ukraine. So this is what I mean. Do not join the Ukrainian military, okay? No matter how much this I know people have been guzzling from the propaganda hose, right? People have just been taking that straight propaganda and guzzling it down, and I know it feels good. It feels good to feel like you have this moral superiority, or you're part of some greater grand conflict between good and evil. Again, this is not a game. This is not a movie. You're not the hero in the movie. You're not the protagonist of reality. Remember a couple of weeks ago when apparently it was the Ukrainians who were begging for fuel, food, and water. The Russians who were begging for fuel, food, and water. This stupid propaganda push really backfired. Well, did it backfire or did it work perfectly? This is the question. The propaganda hose. That's not what I was talking about. Hose is in it's like you're siphoning it. That's what I mean, King Uendo, though. It's like, it didn't backfire. This propaganda push convinced people to go and join this conflict. Because it's like, oh, we're on the winning side. Not only are we on the good, moral, just side, It's any day now. Victory is assured. Any day now. Russia's going to run home with their tail between their legs. This has just been nonstop, this idea. This is in Wall Street Journal a couple days ago. Like, this is so. Again, let's look at the missile strike that we just saw a couple days ago. From just this morning, the missile strike that's now like gotten dozens of people from this Foreign Legion killed. 2 days previously, in the Wall Street Journal, President Volodymyr Zelensky appeals to battle-hardened veterans in a race to augment its ranks. Ukraine's new Foreign Legion takes the fight to Russian forces. Western media has been all in on this. May I please ask if Canadian veterans without an active contract are been going to volunteer in the military? I mean, I'd be interested to see some actual stats on that. I know that there's Canadians that are part of this Foreign Legion. I know we have we've got a large, prominent Ukrainian diaspora in this country, and people are volunteering. Absolutely. Well, and this is kind of what I've been saying, James. Zelensky's a puppet of the West, but on top, I've heard that he's basically boxed in now by these insane neo-Nazis the West has propped up around him. And so now he's fucked. If he surrenders or makes a deal with the Russians, Azov and all these fools will pretty much just murder him and dump him in some ditch. That's what I was talking about when people are saying, like, oh, he's not willing to negotiate. I don't know if he has much say in this now. Between NATO and between the neo-Nazis that have been propped up by NATO, I don't think he has I don't even think he's able to de-escalate or he's able to negotiate. Let me find. I had another one that I seem to have lost. There was this one from a few days ago too. This is from The Sun. On March 9th, British Lion. I'm one of the first Brits to join Ukraine. They fight like lions, and I'm proud to take on Putin with them. And it says, when we arrived, it was very quiet, but all of a sudden the gates of hell opened up on us. A squadron of Russian jets fired down rockets before a fleet of attack choppers joined in. Jason and 10 soldiers from the Georgian Legion took cover in woodland. Jason, who served with the Mercian Regiment, added, "We got very close to getting whacked. I've never experienced firepower like that. I don't think anyone of this generation ever has. Well, you have if you live in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya or Syria. Iraq and Afghanistan was totally different." And like someone mentioned a couple paragraphs back in the chat, I forgot for mentioning this, but yeah, it's like these people, they're volunteering to join Putin, and I guess they've never heard of Aleppo, or they've never heard of Grozny, which are cities that Putin has absolutely flattened. Iraq and Afghanistan was totally different. The Russians are a conventional modern army. This is kind of what we're trying to take away from this here. You're not fighting guys in tracksuits that are cobbling together IEDs. This is an actual military with an air force and stuff and MiGs. And then this motherfucker as well. If this wasn't enough, they were taken to a security service base and interrogated for 3 hours. Jason said, "My head was slammed down by one of the guards. A different guy came in and I could tell," these are Ukrainians, by the way. "A different guy came in and I could tell by his kit that he was an elite unit. He had cable ties and 2 hoods, and I thought, shit, this is real. They kept shouting Russian at me, but obviously I said I was English. They whacked me around 8 or 9 times. I had quite a bad concussion and was bleeding heavily. He went on, they looked at my phone and my messages, which was a really scary moment. I wasn't scared of dying, but I was scared of putting my family and friends through the pain of knowing I was in that situation. Eventually, they were released, and Jason joined hundreds of thousands on trains to Lviv. He then fled to the Polish border before getting a train to Warsaw. From there, he flew to the UK and arrived home in Kidderminster last Friday. He said, I didn't go there to die. I obviously thought about it, but I had a job to do. So he volunteers, again, to go take the fight to Putin, immediately gets fucking decimated in an airstrike, then gets tortured by people in the Ukraine military for thinking that he's a Russian spy, and he just immediately goes home. What's up, Comrade Kenny? I have friends who are into exec protection, guys who train mercs for Blackwater, etc., and guys I follow on social media who are their trainers, all psychos. Don't shed a tear for any of them. Well, I guess I'm trying to make a difference, Comrade Kenny, between like these kind of mercs who are just going over there because they want to kill, and just like naive Westerners with no experience that are buying this propaganda campaign about, again, joining the plucky underdogs that are on the verge of repelling this invasion because the Russians are just doing so badly. And people getting this idea of like, oh, you're going to join the good guys in this fundamental conflict between good and evil with zero experience, and people are volunteering to be part of this and just are getting fucking blown to bits. I mean, there are people that are falling for this. Hi, Rob. Please don't worry. I'm not going to Ukraine. The world needs podcasters. That's right. Big shiny takes, Eric. Thank you, Eric. We're the true heroes. We're the true heroes in all this. So thank you for doing everything that you do. Thank you for your service. Yeah, the Russians are just a week away from the knockout blow. Naive Westerners, Rob, it's a settler thing to stop the Asiatic hordes. It's not naive, it's bigotry and settler colonialism to a T. Well, that's obviously part of it, Silver. But there's also, like, you can't deny as well, I'm sure, and I know you're aware of this, that there is this massive propaganda push. Like, there's a full court press propaganda push from our very, very powerful media establishment that people are buying it. They're really buying it. And I guess, like, regardless of everything you're pointing out, which I don't disagree with, there's still kind of a tragedy inherent to that. That people are believing this Western propaganda and they're getting pulled into this and they're fucking laying down their lives for no reason. You know? There's kind of a tragedy for that. I played in one in Civilization 6 as Ukraine against Russia. Where's my medal? Yeah. But this is all just very grim stuff, though. There's work to be done so we can actually bring this NATO war machine to its knees. Well, that's one of the tragedies of this conflict, Silver, is that it seems like this has strengthened NATO more than anything. Right? Not only is there this huge human cost of, like, Russian soldiers that are conscripted into this thing, and they're getting thrown to the front lines. There's Ukrainian civilians that are dying. There's these poor fucks that are swallowing this propaganda campaign and volunteering for this. It just feels like, and now there's this huge human cost, and now you have like all these countries like Finland, they're all clamoring to join NATO now. This has given the NATO guys everything that they want. It's kicked off this whole new Red Scare, which is taking off now. This is from The Guardian. Yeah, Friday. My plan is there is no plan. Like this does this sound like something that anyone wants to be a part of? My plan is there is no plan. Cool. Good job. The foreign fighters flocking to Ukraine. Thousands of people from around the world have joined the war effort, unsure when or if they will return home. My grandfather spent 10 years in a Soviet camp in Kazakhstan. Wonder what he was up to prior to that. Igor Gavrilko was at his home in West London when the Russian bombs began to fall on Ukraine. A British citizen originally from Ukraine, he had lived in the UK since '96, working most recently for Nissan as a forecourt salesperson. He rang his boss. I knew a Russian invasion was going to happen, he said. My Ukrainian grandfather fought against the Red Army and the Nazis in World War II. Now it's my turn to help, which is another thing we've heard often from these Ukrainian nationalists. Oh, he fought the Nazis as well. Igor, what was your Opa up to? Yeah, in Old Dutch, they now have perfect excuse and tacit consent to just ban any counter-narrative as well. And we're seeing that play out in real time right now. How do you fight the Red Army and Nazis at the same time? He fought against the Red Army, turns to look at the audience, and the Nazis. Did you, though? Did he? What do you mean? We all know that everyone in prison in the Soviet Union was an innocent freedom fighter and prisoner of conscience. Yes, that's true. No, I was part of a third group. You probably haven't heard of them. Well, that's the thing. Maybe it was one of these like Ukrainian nationalist movements where it's like even the Nazis were like, this is actually taking things a little far, like with Bandera, which we talked about with Carl last week. Even Bandera, the Nazis, when it came to Stepan Bandera, were like, this is actually a bit much for us. Maybe it was one of those situations. There was actually a band of psychopaths covered in Ukraine on fire that talked about these guys. Fought the Nazis when Soviets liberated Ukraine. Then went and turned on the Soviets too. Yeah. I, for one, am excited for the future. What's this, Bolden? This is cool. I do like this.
Roadway initiative projects have been implemented in really a predatory fashion. Congress attempted to counteract China's Belt and Roadway initiatives.
Not like our loan program with the IMF. Build Act. By the way, the IMF, which Ukraine declined IMF loans prior to the Maidan coup that kicked off this entire conflict. Talk about predatory loan program. They said no to the IMF and immediately the government was overthrown. I wonder if that's probably just coincidence though.
The Belt and Roadway initiative projects have been implemented in really a predatory fashion. Congress attempted to counteract China's Belt and Roadway initiatives in 2018, the Build Act. As far as I can tell, and I may be incorrect, but there seems to be little interest by the underdeveloped nations to utilize the U.S. Build Act over China. Why do you think these nations have been so hesitant to utilize the U.S. and help fund their initiatives?
And I'm interested to see the answer to this, but it is funny, and this is why we were pointing out the other day, like Camilla from Kausachin, friend of the stream, was saying like, you don't understand the support that Russia has right now in Latin America. Like you're underestimating the extent that which Latin America is kind of uniting behind Russia in this conflict. And it's like we were saying on the stream, it's like, yeah, they know. They're all too intimately familiar with what Yankee imperialism looks like. They know exactly what happens when America comes into their country and starts funding right-wing psychopaths and these armed militia groups, and what happens to your society in that case. Yeah, they've been through this a couple times now. People in Latin America, they know all about this. They know all about predatory loans and what that means. Not just the military imperialism, but the economic imperialism. It's not surprising at all that I think people in Latin America are uniting behind Russia in this conflict. And it's not surprising at all that they're rejecting U.S. help, these developing nations in Latin America, and turning to China. Because again, they know exactly what it means to cut deals with the United States of America. Zelensky in Ukraine is finding out what that means right now too. They're finding out exactly what happens when you make deals and you get assurances of security from the US of A and NATO and these Western powers. You find out exactly what that means. Or accepting IMF loans, which they eventually did, I believe, after the government was overthrown. Let's see this answer.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for the question. And I completely concur with General Richardson's characterization of what China is doing in the region through its gray zone tactics and leveraging BRI. We have seen those predatory practices play out in other regions of the world, and it's disturbing that it is happening in the hemisphere as well, and with our close partners.
Right in their front yard.
In response to your question, I would have to defer to the Department of State and USAID colleagues in terms of how the conversations are proceeding.
Why are people in Latin America rejecting people from USAID? It says aid right there in the title. Yeah, it's like they know. They know what this shit means now.
Partners in the region as they engage them on the BUILD Act, but certainly to underscore the need for a holistic approach to the region to get after the gray zone challenge.
We're offering help, and they're not taking it.
Yeah, no shit.
Yes.
But yet, so when I talk is we need to provide assistance. We need to provide assistance. We need to provide assistance. Then we provide assistance, and they don't want it.
Multipolarity.
So is that
what it
really
is now.
the issue? Or is there something I'm missing?
It's not just about America
It's
anymore,
an
is
excellent question, Congresswoman. And again, I would have to defer to the State Department, who is on the front lines of engaging with partners on that particular issue. But certainly from a Department of Defense perspective, we continue our security cooperation, commitments, and relationships as a great way to continue to build the relationships in the region.
Salad.
But we have to get them off of China and our adversaries.
That ship has sailed, lady.
We really have to spend some time on why, because it really isn't that we're not providing.
Do they not know why? That's the amazing thing. We have to get them off of China, of our adversaries. That ship has sailed, lady. That's gone. That's long gone. That opportunity. Number one. This question, this is what I don't understand. These U.S. officials, who apparently just have no understanding of the history of what their government has done. I genuinely don't get it. We really have to spend some time on why. Why are they rejecting our help like this? Why would they reject this offer? We're extending a hand in friendship to these developing nations, and they're rebuking us. They're slapping our hand away. Why? Why is that? It's like, lady, you work for the U.S. government. Do you not have any fucking idea? I'm genuinely asking. Do you not have any fucking idea what your government has been doing in Central and South America for decades? Do you think people are stupid? Again, look no further we know why Latin America is showing such strong support for Russia in this Russia-Ukraine conflict, because they know what Yankee imperialism is. Again, they know full well what has happened in places like El Salvador or Nicaragua or all these other places where the U.S. has armed and funded these fucking right-wing death squads that have gone on rampages in these societies and committing horrible genocides. They're familiar with this playbook, the playbook that we're now seeing playing out in Ukraine. Yeah, exactly. Comrade social distancing. Remember when Joe Biden went, I don't think Latin America is our backyard. I think it's our front yard. And every Latin American knows exactly what he means. Yeah. It's just the arrogance of this is incredible. We have to get them off China. These predatory loans from China, we got to get them off China. Why are they saying no to our completely non-predatory offers of aid and friendship? I can't seem to open that, Silver. The plan is to coup literally all of Latin America, the 3rd and 4th Fleet sitting in the Caribbean ready to go. Thousands of troops who pulled out of Afghanistan have been redeployed to Latin America and are still ready to fight, and thousands of mercenaries have been sliding into Latin America for years. The Copium Wars, that's a good way of putting it. We've been killing and oppressing you people for hundreds of years, and now you turning to China is the thanks we get. And yeah, we look at fucking open veins of Latin America. It goes beyond the last couple hundred of years. Like the exploitation of the West and of these former colonial countries, or current neo-colonial countries, depending on how you want to phrase it. And now they're like going to... This is the attachments of the General Services Agreement between the Venezuelan opposition and Silvercorp. The document was provided to Venezuelan opposition officials on the condition that one of the attachments be redacted. I mean, this seems interesting, but I can't go over through this 41-page document. But I think we get the basic idea, Silver. And it is funny though that now they're turning to Maduro to be like, hey, can you help us out? Now that we're turning off the gas from Russia, can you help us out, Maduro? I know we've been like proclaiming other people that have no fucking credibility or support whatsoever. We've been proclaiming presidents of Venezuela now for the last couple of years. We've been promoting guys like Elliot Abrams to do this. Elliot Abrams, who literally oversaw some of those genocides that I was talking about in the 80s in El Salvador. Actual criminals with blood on their hands, who empowered right-wing death squads to go on these fucking rampages and then covered it up. I know we've been promoting guys like that to destabilize your country, but hey, can you help? Can you do us a solid now? Can you help us out? And of course, they're surprised that Venezuela and these other Latin American countries are like, no, thank you. This woman is giving strong Miss Millie energy for the melanin deficient in the chat. It's from the shitty white lib lady who took extreme umbrage with the blacks not accepting her help in The Color Purple. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that movie. I haven't seen Color Purple, Comrade Kenny, but I think we all know the type. This is the most galling thing about those people, especially the self-proclaimed leftist socialists who are now running cover and justification for U.S. imperialism, saying it's somehow insignificant compared to this terrible Russian imperialism, and anyway, it was all done out of good intentions and benevolence, so yeah. You realize, especially over the last couple of weeks, how strong the American exceptionalism is in Western propaganda. So this is part of that document that Silver was sending over. That's really an amazing clip. How are they saying no to our help? The following groups and organizations have been identified as paramilitary forces that may be considered hostile and engaged. The Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, People's Army. The National Liberation Army, Hezbollah. Illegitimate Venezuelan forces. Maduro, his lieutenants, key associates, and any armed supporters of Maduro have been designated as declared hostile forces. And there's a lot of civilians that have been armed in Venezuela to protect their neighborhoods, right? So they're getting included in this as well. The colectivos. Diosdado Cabello, his lieutenants and key associates have been designated as a declared hostile force. This is really, really an amazing clip about this. I actually just want to see this again. It's really stunning. She just doesn't know. That's what I don't get about these fucking Americans. She just doesn't get it.
The Belt and Roadway Initiative projects have been implemented in really a predatory fashion. Congress attempted to counteract China's Belt and Road.
By the way, Comrade Kenny, I think an analogy that you mentioned The Color Purple. I would talk about Native Son as well. I don't know if you've read Native Son. I have it behind me there. Native Son is one of my favorite books, and something that really helped me understand the reality of being black in America and what that means. But there's a lot of these kind of types as well in Native Son. These kind of like performative white allies. Great book.
Roadway initiatives in 2018, the BUILD Act. As far as I can tell, and I may be incorrect, but there seems to be little interest by the underdeveloped nations to utilize the U.S. BUILD Act over China. Why do you think these nations have been so hesitant to utilize the U.S. and help fund their initiatives?
She's so confused. Look at her. Look at her face. She really just doesn't get it. It's amazing to me, some of these Americans. It's really amazing. Like, I don't think this is performative. I think she really just doesn't get it. Yeah, these types actually think they're the good guys. Like, you work for the U.S. government, and you just have no conception of what your fucking government has been doing. You have no, you clearly just have no fucking idea. I recoil every time I hear the word underdeveloped. That's right. It's been a long time that these places in Latin America have been underdeveloped. It's been 400 or 500 years of this shit. You'd think by now that they would maybe be developed after 400 years of like Western colonialist development. You'd think Latin America would be developed by this time. You'd think Africa would be developed by now. But as we know, folks, these countries in Central and South America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, they're not underdeveloped, are they? They're not underdeveloped. They're overexploited. But this lady doesn't seem to understand that basic concept.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for the question, and I completely concur with General Richardson's characterization of what China is doing in the region through its gray zone tactics and leveraging BRI. We have seen those predatory practices play out in other regions of the world, and it's disturbing that it is happening in the hemisphere as well and with our close partners. In response to your question, I would have to defer to the Department of State and USAID colleagues in terms of how the conversations are proceeding with partners in the region as they engage them on the BUILD Act, but certainly to underscore the need for a holistic approach to the region to get after the gray zone challenge.
We're offering help.
What?
And they're not.
This is a lib face moment.
Yes.
We're offering it, but they're not taking it.
Whoa.
You know,
so when I talk is
what?
we need to provide assistance. We need to provide assistance. We need to provide assistance. Then we provide assistance.
They're ungrateful.
And they don't want it. So is
They're
that
just
really
ungrateful,
the issue?
aren't they?
Or is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, I think there's something you're missing, you fucking loser.
Congresswoman, and again, I would have to defer to the State Department, who is on the front lines of engaging with partners on that particular issue. But certainly from a Department of Defense perspective,
amazing.
We continue our security cooperation, commitments, and relationships as a great way to continue to build the relationships in the region.
But we have to get them off of China and our adversaries.
It's not going to happen, lady. It's over. It's over, ma'am. You're not going to get them off China and your adversaries. That ship has sailed, ma'am. It's finished. Your empire is in decline. They don't want it. You said it yourself. They don't want it anymore. They're hip to what the U.S. is all about. They know what it means to take economic aid from America. They know all about these offers of friendship and aid from the U.S. They know exactly what this is. People are not stupid. This is the U.S. mentality. We have to get them off China because it's bad for us. Okay, what about what is good for these countries and their people? Well, that's why they frame everything as being predatory. You see, now they're taking the bad aid. They're rejecting our good aid, which is not predatory, of course. And now, because of this, they're accepting the bad predatory aid. Again, completely ignoring the decades of evidence that we have about things, the way that the World Bank and the way that the IMF is extremely predatory and is a tool of U.S. empire to continue the exploitation and continued colonialism of these countries. They had a choice between the IMF and the BRI, and they chose BRI. That's right. And they were correct to do so. Ukraine doesn't get it yet, apparently. I mean, this is what Ukraine should be, the ultimate example. Right now, it should be the ultimate example of what happens when you make a deal with the United States of America and you accept economic aid from the IMF and you make a security deal with the United States of America. This is what happens. They don't fucking care about you. They're not coming to help you. They're not going to protect you. They're not trying to help you out of the goodness of their hearts. They're using you for their own ends. That's what Mearsheimer said. They got led down the primrose path. That's exactly right. Let me see if I can find this other thing too. Trying to find this story about that NYT journalist. Okay, thank you. We'll take a look at this first. This is from Bolden in the Discord. And thanks once again to friend of the stream, Camilla, for working this beat. Really great journalist, Camilla. Here's where you know it's over for the U.S. as countries find a solid development partner in China, which has invested billions in infrastructure projects in Argentina, Jamaica, Cuba, Peru, Colombia, etc. These are not small projects they're putting in this region. So listen when they're talking about this. And exactly why they're rejecting these offers of friendship and aid from the United States.
Are there particular Belt Road Initiative projects that concern you the most? Which types of projects do you think are most important for us to prioritize as we not only monitor Chinese infrastructure investment, but also seek to provide alternatives to it? So it's not the bigger picture, but specifically, are there port projects, energy projects that we should be aware of that that concerns you?
So the projects that China has in the AOR are extremely prevalent. And when there are other agencies that are providing projects like USAID and things like that. My lever really is the Corps of Engineers and the projects that they do. But in terms of for the Department of Defense, that's only about $250 million in projects over a 5-year period. If I look at what PRC is investing in the AOR over a 5-year period of 2017 to 2021, $72 billion. It's off the charts. And I can read a couple of the projects. The most concerning projects that I have are the $6 billion in projects.
Take your $72 billion and stuff it, President Xi, sir. We don't want it. We would rather stick with America, who have treated us so well. They've treated us so kindly. They've been so generous. Take your $72 billion and get it out of here, sir. Yeah, I can't believe they're not doing this. It's just a mystery. It's just a total mystery as to why they're not doing this. I don't get it.
Specifically near the Panama Canal. And I look at the strategic lines of communication, Panama Canal and the Strait of Magellan. But just to highlight a couple of the projects, the nuclear power plant in Argentina, $7.9 billion. The highway in Jamaica, $5.6 billion. The energy refinery in Cuba, $5 billion. The highway in Peru, $4 billion. Energy dam in Argentina, $4 billion. The metro in Colombia, $3.9 billion.
And Colombia, a close U.S. ally in Latin America. And it might be slipping away.
Freight railway in Argentina, $3 billion. These are not small projects that they're putting in this region. This region is rich in resources, and the Chinese don't go there to invest. They go there to extract. All of these projects are done with Chinese labor, not with host nation countries.
Time has expired.
Canada should get in on the BRI. So should America. America's infrastructure is total dog shit. It's just all falling apart. Maybe we can get one high-speed rail line, and eventually we're going to get to a point where that offer is going to be on the table, I'm sure. Can you post the link to this in the Discord or chat? Yeah, of course I can. I'll post it in the chat right now.
Are there particular belt?
It's coming from our friend Camilla, friend of the stream, former guest of the stream Camilla, from Kausachin News. Yeah, so this is an interesting story about this NYT journalist that was killed in Ukraine. I mean, first of all, the way it was framed originally, but as the story came out, was murdered by the evil Russians. And I'm trying to find one of the first posts. Now they've tried to walk back, and they're not saying who. Here's like how this story was framed initially. This American journalist who's like an NYT contributor who had nothing to do with the NYT for the last couple of years, and they quickly distanced themselves from it. So something kind of suspicious about it in the first place. Being shared by this guy, Jonathan F. Balencieri. This was how this was framed initially when this came out. An award-winning American journalist was killed in Irpin, Ukraine. Brent Renault was in a vehicle with other colleagues when Russian troops opened fire. 2 others were wounded, according to the Times. UK Sky News and NYT crews suffered similar attacks recently. And then you have this clip of the guy's colleague who kind of disputed that story, and you can see the way that's being reported in Western media now. They're not saying they're pulling back from the idea that he was shot by the Russians, but they're being very ambiguous about who did this shooting in the first place. Here's what his colleague said.
Tell me please, what is your name?
Juan.
Juan? Where are you from?
The U.S.
U.S. What happened to you?
We crossed the first bridge in Irpin. We're going to film other refugees leaving, and we got into a car. Somebody offered to take us to the other bridge, and we crossed a checkpoint, and they start shooting at us. So the driver turned around, and they kept shooting. It's 2 of us. My friend is Brent Renault, and he's been shot and left behind.
And how is he?
I don't know.
You don't know. You don't know what happened to him.
I saw him being shot in the neck, and we got split, and I got pulled into the.
And who brought you here?
An ambulance. I don't know.
Tell me.
So, and yeah, it's telling. I think we can infer what actually happened by the fact that the New York Times and other Western outlets that are reporting on this are pulling back from the idea that he was shot by Russians. And they're saying it was kind of ambiguous. Like, that's how they're kind of reporting it now. An American journalist killed in Ukraine. Brent Renault, an award-winning American filmmaker and journalist, was killed in Ukraine on Sunday while reporting in a suburb of the capital, Kiev, according to Ukraine's Interior Ministry. The Ukrainian authorities said he was killed in Irpin, a suburb that has been the site of intense shelling by Russian forces in recent days. But the details of his death were not immediately clear. Ukrainian officials said another journalist was wounded as well. I think we can infer from this what happened. At the time of his death, Mr. Renault was on assignment for Time Studios working on a project. If we can infer from what they're not saying here and what his colleague was saying. They're doing the cop language. Bullets were caused to be discharged in their direction. They're doing that sort of the way that they talk about police shootings. Was on assignment for Time Studios working on a project focused on the global refugee crisis. Anton Gerashenko, an advisor to Ukraine's interior minister, said in a statement that Mr. Renault paid with his life for attempting to expose the insidiousness, cruelty, and ruthlessness of the aggressor. So let's just take a look at this one more time. Right? This is what started this off.
2 years ago.
This is a big post. One of the primary on the front page of this Volunteers for Ukraine subreddit. Slava Ukraini, it says. To veterans of uniformed services of the free world, join Ukrainian Foreign Legion today to help stop Russia's military invasion of Ukraine. So let's take a look at all the things that we've talked about today. Let's take a look at this video that's being promoted on Reddit, where all these kinds of different viewpoints are currently being censored. We're seeing this mass censorship campaign across social media, across media right now. Of course, calls for violence against Russian people being completely allowed. Support for these neo-Nazi groups like Azov Battalion are being allowed when they were previously not allowed. And this is on the front, again, this is still on the front page of this subreddit. Even after today, when the headquarters, the barracks of this Foreign Legion was bombed in an attack in which dozens of people were killed.
This is an open call to all the
still there
heroes
on
of the
the
free
front
world.
page of this subreddit.
On the 24th of February, Vladimir Putin started the war in Ukraine. He planned a blitzkrieg, but got the blitzkrieg instead, when his numerous bastards called the Russian army met the Ukrainians armed with stingers, javelins, Bayraktars, and an uncompromising willingness to protect their liberty. Soldiers and heroes of the world, join the fight for liberty, for the human rights, for the free world. Join the Foreign Legion of Ukraine.
Again, this is not a fucking game. This is not a game. This is not a movie. And I think it's really dangerous. It's honestly upsetting. And it's really, really dangerous that this has been completely normalized. This has been widely disseminated in Western media and social media, this idea. Not only the idea that it's a good and moral thing to do to just literally go and start and join this fucking fight, but that this is a fight that Russia is losing. This has been widely propagated in our media. People have gleefully shared this idea. And what we looked at today is the actual reality result of that. Not the Reddit Call of Duty version, but the actual real reality of it. Please do not join the Ukrainian military. Please. It looks like most American conservatives do, in fact, think it's a game, though. Jesus Christ. And normally I don't share information from Jordan Ewell. I know he's kind of a shady figure, often sharing this kind of propaganda, but I guess for this time I'm going to allow it.
Poll asks, what would you do if you were in the same position as Ukrainians are right now? Would you stay and fight or leave the country? More than half of Democrats, 52%, say they would cut and run if America were invaded. Only 40% say that they would stick it out. This contrasts sharply with the 68% of Republicans who say they would stay to fight for the country. Mark Thiessen.
I'll serve crack before I
even more
serve this country.
disturbing than the partisan
As the saying
dynamic
goes.
there is the generational dynamic. You're all too young to remember, but in 1984 there was a fantastic movie called Red Dawn.
Red Dawn, that's right.
Dawn. It was
This
a
is all we
story
understand in the West, in America.
Exactly. It was a story
all our
of
heroes
a
are
Soviet
fucking
invasion
cartoon
of
characters and
America.
movie
These high school
action
kids,
stars.
led by Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen.
Patrick Swayze is going to come rescue us any day now. Jesus Christ.
Insurgency to beat the Russians. Well, the Wolverines are no more. That poll shows that every generation except Gen X and millennials would stay and fight. 52% of those over 65 would stay and fight. God bless the silent generation and the boomers.
Yeah, I'm sure the 65-year-old like motor scooter Walmart generation is going to do a great job in their own protracted insurgency. Again, this is the country that just had a protracted 2-year meltdown over not being able to go to fucking Chili's at any time that they want. They've been whining and crying about this now for 2 goddamn years. I'm sure these people are going to do a really great job in this protracted insurgency. Yeah. For sure. Jesus Christ.
66% of those 50 to 64 would stay and fight. 57% of those 35 to 49 would fight, but only 45% of Gen X and Gen Z and millennials would stay and fight. 48% would flee. So Patrick Swayze's rolling over in his grave.
Just for 1 second, because I know you really drilled down
They have
on
no
this more than
heroes.
anybody on the panel today, potentially.
Who's their hero?
Are those
SpongeBob?
people, though, with young children? I'm just trying to get a total demographic view of what the shift is there.
I don't know. It may have something to do with that, though. Most of the people in our military are in that 18 to 34-year-old demographic. Those are the people we'd actually be counting on. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be the one going to fight. Nobody wants me. Nobody wants someone over 65. It's that generation. But I think it might have something to do with this whole culture of safetyism.
They want a safe space.
Generation of kids to be afraid to go walk outside after dark.
It's cancel culture.
So if you're
is the
walking
reason
outside
for
after
this.
dark and there's like the Red Army's outside your door, you might be even more afraid.
Or if you live in some of these big blue-lead cities with the crime burgeoning.
Yes.
Like right now, they told us today that potentially a serial killer is on the loose here in New York and possibly with ties.
This
with
weird new
DC.
generation that
You
doesn't
gotta
want to
read
kill
about
and
that to
die
even
for no
believe
fucking
it.
reason.
So we're going to need toughness from our young people.
Goodness gracious. What a country.